Host. If you want to understand why Japan has one of the lowest cancer rates on the planet, do not look at their hospitals. Do not look at their genetics. Look at what tens of millions of Japanese seniors do within 30 minutes of waking up every single morning. Let me tell you what makes this remarkable. Researchers who spent decades studying the populations of Okinawa and Nagano, two of the longest-lived regions in human history, kept finding the same thing. It was not meditation. It was not cold water. It was a specific sequence of morning habits that appears to directly interfere with how cancer cells grow, survive, and replicate inside the human body. Now, most people assume the Japanese live longer and get less cancer because of genetics. But that theory is invalid because when Japanese populations move to the United States and adopt a Western lifestyle, their cancer rates climb to match ours within 1 to 2 generations. The genes did not change, the habits did, and that changes everything. Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, one of Japan's most respected longevity researchers. And today, he is breaking down the exact 3-part morning ritual that makes this possible. The science behind each element, the precise protocol, and the 4 mistakes that silently undo it all. Stay with us. Guest. Thank you so much. What we are covering today is some of the most compelling evidence in the field of cancer prevention. Host. Before we get into the ritual itself, let me ask you, why does timing matter so much? Why is morning the window that determines everything? Guest. Because your body is already doing something extraordinary the moment you wake up. Within the first 30 to 45 minutes, your cortisol levels surge. Most people think of cortisol as a stress hormone and nothing more, but this morning cortisol spike has a very specific job. It primes your natural killer cells for peak surveillance activity. These are the immune cells that actively patrol your tissues, looking for abnormal cells. Morning is when they are most aggressive, most ready, and most capable of finding and destroying what does not belong. Host. And after 50, that system starts to weaken, right? Guest. Actually, 3 systems weaken simultaneously. Your DNA repair enzyme speed drops by 20 to 35%, and your natural killer cells become less aggressive. This means your body's ability to suppress tumor angiogenesis, the process by which a microscopic cluster of cancer cells recruits a blood supply to grow, measurably declines. And that last one is critical. A cancer cluster that cannot access blood vessels stays permanently frozen, harmless, at roughly the size of a pinhead. The moment it gains that blood supply, researchers at Harvard found it can expand 16,000 times in as little as 14 days. Host. So what you consume in that morning window either amplifies all 3 of those defense systems or it suppresses them. Guest. Exactly. And this is not a small distinction. The decisions made in the first 2 hours after waking shape the biological environment your cells operate in for the rest of the day. The Japanese morning ritual works by hitting all 3 defense systems simultaneously, and it has been doing so empirically for centuries, before the research caught up to explain why. Host. So let's start with the first element, because this one alone has more peer-reviewed evidence behind it than most pharmaceutical interventions. What is the first element, and what is it actually doing inside the body? Guest. It's matcha, or high-grade sencha green tea. The active compound is called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. What EGCG does is extraordinary. Cancer cells cannot grow beyond a certain microscopic size without recruiting blood vessels to feed them. They do this by releasing a chemical signal called VEGF. EGCG directly blocks that signal. It acts as a biological jammer, keeping tumor clusters frozen and accessible to the natural killer cells we just discussed. Multiple independent laboratory studies have confirmed this mechanism, and a 2023 meta-analysis covering over 1.1 million participants found statistically significant reductions in cancer incidence associated with regular green tea consumption, strongest in digestive cancers, bladder cancer, and breast cancer. Host: what is the exact preparation protocol? This actually matters more than most people realize. Guest: 1 teaspoon of matcha, approximately 2 to 3 grams. Water heated to exactly 175 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. Boiling water destroys the active compounds entirely. Whisk the matcha with a small amount of cool water first to form a paste. Then add the 175 degree water and add the juice of half a lemon. Vitamin C creates an acidic environment that protects the EGCG from degrading in the digestive tract. Studies measuring EGCG concentrations in the bloodstream show 6 times the absorption in lemon-supplemented tea versus plain tea. Host: but there is something that destroys it, right? A mistake many people make. Guest: dairy. A splash of milk in your green tea does not reduce catechin absorption slightly. It essentially eliminates it. The casein proteins in dairy form an irreversible complex with the active compounds in your digestive tract, and they pass straight through unabsorbed. Use oat milk, almond milk, or nothing. But not dairy. This is one of the most common mistakes and one of the most costly. Host: that is the first element. Stay with us, everyone, because what comes next is the piece most people completely overlook, and it may be the most important of the 3. Tell us, what is the second element, and why does the gut have anything to do with cancer defense? Guest: because your gut microbiome is not just a digestive system, it is an immune regulation system. And there is one specific bacteria that determines more than almost any other factor whether your immune system can locate and destroy cancer cells. It is called Akkermansia mucinifila. A landmark study at the Gustave Roussy Cancer Center, one of Europe's leading oncology institutions, identified Akkermansia as the single most predictive biomarker of whether a patient's immune system could successfully respond to cancer immunotherapy. Patients with high Akkermansia had strong immune responses. Patients with low Akkermansia did not respond at all. Host: and the Japanese morning ritual feeds this bacteria directly, I assume. Guest: yes, through natto, a fermented soybean. A 50-gram serving, roughly 3 tablespoons, contains nattokinase, substantial vitamin K2, and a prebiotic fiber profile that dramatically amplifies Akkermansia populations in the gut. A clinical trial at the University of California found that consuming compounds structurally similar to those produced during natto fermentation increased Akkermansia by 6 times within 3 weeks. Not 6%, 6 times, measured by precision DNA sequencing of microbiome samples. Host: most Western listeners are not going to eat natto. What is the practical alternative? Guest: 8 ounces of unsweetened pomegranate juice consumed with breakfast, combined with any traditionally fermented unpasteurized food, kimchi, raw miso soup, or kefir. The key word is unpasteurized. Pasteurization kills the live cultures that do the microbiome work. A pasteurized fermented food is a dead fermented food. It will not move the needle. And for anyone who thinks this sounds optional, the Gustave Roussy data showed that patients with low Akkermansia did not respond to immunotherapy at all. This is not a peripheral detail. It determines whether your immune system can do its job. Host: what is the third element? Guest: an ancient Japanese eating principle called Hara hachi bu. It translates roughly as eat until you are 80% full, not stuffed, not satisfied, 80%. This mild daily caloric gap is sufficient to activate a cellular process called autophagy, literally self-eating. Your cells begin digesting and clearing damaged internal components, including precancerous cellular debris that would otherwise accumulate. Research from the National Institute on Aging confirms that even modest caloric restriction consistently activates this process. Your body reads a mild caloric gap as a signal to begin internal housekeeping. Host. What should the actual breakfast look like? Guest. 2 eggs. Choline is a key methyl donor for DNA repair. Half a cup of blueberries. The anthocyanins are both anti-angiogenic and directly protective of DNA. 1 teaspoon of ground flaxseed stirred into anything. The lignans modulate estrogen-sensitive cancer pathways and add additional anti-angiogenic activity. Stop eating before you feel full. That gap is not deprivation. It is medicine. Host. So the full morning sequence is: wait 20 minutes after waking, then tea at 175 degrees with lemon and no dairy, then fermented food with breakfast, then stop at 80%. That is the complete protocol. 3 elements, 3 defense systems, each one supported by independent peer-reviewed research. All of it done before most people have finished their first cup of coffee. And none of it requires a prescription, a supplement stack, or anything you cannot find in a grocery store. Please stay with us, because what we discuss in the last part of this episode could be undoing everything you just heard, and you need to know what it is. Guest. Write this down, everyone. The first mistake is dairy in the tea. We covered this, but it bears repeating because it is that common and that damaging. Casein proteins form an irreversible complex with the catechins in your digestive tract, and they pass straight through unabsorbed. A splash of milk does not reduce the benefit slightly, it eliminates it. Use oat milk, almond milk, or nothing. Number 2, a high sugar or refined carbohydrate breakfast. Cereal, white toast, fruit juice, a bagel, any of these trigger an insulin spike that temporarily suppresses natural killer cell activity for 2 to 3 hours. That is your entire biological morning window gone. The immune cells that should be at peak patrol are standing down instead. And this is happening in tens of millions of homes every single morning. Number 3, skipping the fermented component because it feels inconvenient. Most people focus on the tea because the EGCG research is the most published and most discussed. But the Akkermansia pathway may be equally important, especially over 60 when immune surveillance is already declining. A small bottle of unsweetened pomegranate juice with breakfast takes 30 seconds. There is no valid reason to skip it. Number 4, replacing whole foods with supplements. EGCG capsules exist. Green tea extract in pill form exists. But research consistently shows lower bioavailability, less synergistic interaction with co-occurring compounds, and in some individuals, liver stress at high isolated doses. The catechins in real tea travel alongside L-theanine, quercetin, and dozens of other compounds that appear to enhance each other's absorption and biological activity in ways we do not fully understand yet. A capsule does not replicate that complexity. The whole food is the medicine. Host. Amazing. Everyone, stay for this one final question. Someone is watching this and they want to start tomorrow. What is the single most important thing to get right first? Guest. The tea. Get the temperature right, 175 degrees, not boiling. Add the lemon. Remove the dairy. That one change, done consistently, begins delivering EGCG to your bloodstream at 6 times the concentration most people are currently getting, even if they already drink green tea. Then add the fermented food, even just the pomegranate juice. 2 changes, 2 of the 3 defense systems activated. Start there and build the rest around it. The biology of these habits is cumulative. Akkermansia populations need consistent feeding over weeks to establish dominance in the gut. The anti-angiogenic effect of EGCG is not a one-time intervention. It is a daily signal sent to the same cancer pathways every morning. Missing a day is not a disaster. Abandoning the habit because you could not do it perfectly is. Consistency at 70% produces measurable biological change. Perfection pursued and abandoned produces nothing. Start tomorrow. Host. If this gave you something real, a mechanism you did not understand before, a habit you can actually begin tomorrow, share it with someone over 50 who needs to hear it, and hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to watch this next episode. Oh, this is a good one. People should see this. Definitely. See you there.